What's up, y'all? You are listening to Chain Reaction. I set myself up so that I can no longer hear my audio, which was perfect time during the song playing. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself, sir?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Oh, I can now, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Cool. What's going on?
Shit,
Not
really.
much, you?
Oh, just living the life. Enjoying my kid. I took a nap this afternoon. That was pretty good. The weather is extra hot today, which means I'm extra sweaty because I wore too much clothing. So sorry about the smell if you guys are bothered by it. I'm going to trouble you. So anything you want to talk about up front?
Well, I guess I
I could. Oh,
go ahead.
Jeremiah, were you going to say something?
there's just a little bit of a delay. That's all.
Oh,
Go
gotcha.
ahead, Andre.
Oh, cool. We got.
We'll just say go ahead this whole time.
Delay.
Go ahead.
Oh.
You go ahead. All right.
Yeah.
See you guys next week.
No, I just wanted to just highlight the tiny bit of buzz that the group of MCs I'm affiliated with have gotten recently over the Valentine's Day. I don't even call it a holiday. Probably not. We released 2 songs aimed
Nice.
at anarchist and libertarian women, and it seemed to be received pretty well. So I'm definitely happy about that. And I dropped a little freestyle like the day after, and we're working on a bunch more stuff now. It seems like we're actually getting a bit of a following now. So
That's fun.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's exciting. All right. Well, one thing I wanted to mention last time, just because it's so stupid. Hey, sorry. I got distracted when the show started because my audio recording on this end isn't working well because I think an SD card is not fully plugged in. Today's show, it's going to be us 3. We're going to talk a little bit about economics, and then we're going to bring on Joseph Naugler, and I think someone else from his family, and they are homesteaders who have some stories they would like to share. We're going to interview them at about 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and look forward to that. He'll be calling in, and I believe it will be a little more smooth than last time, which is fantastic. But one news story that happened before last episode, and we got a little distracted, but I just thought it was so funny, is that a Saudi prince was given an award by the CIA for counterterrorism efforts, which is
right.
That's like the Onion news story. It's the most ridiculous parody of reality that just happens to be true. And if you
Kind of like giving a peace prize to somebody who then goes on to bomb the shit out of half the world.
Yeah, like that. But it's almost like doing it afterward. It's almost like someone that just got done bombing a bunch of children, and then you go give them a peace prize.
Right.
It's just insane. I mean, the CIA and the Saudis are 2 of the biggest backers of terror groups in the world, especially in the Middle Eastern area. It's one of those moments where you're like, oh yeah, nothing these people do can be trusted. And I just wonder how much people actually buy that. I think that it is getting so absurd what these groups are doing and what the government is doing and what the media is doing that they are losing all of their trust and all of whatever rapport they had built up. It's got to be just disintegrating. Hopefully. I can't believe that the CIA can do stuff like that and get away with it, though, without mass criticism.
Well, you should, because the CIA isn't designed for intelligence for our safety. It's designed essentially as the propaganda and logistics arm of the U.S. military and prison industrial complex.
Yes, yeah, and I should, because the CIA is heavily in bed with the media, and they do tons of controlling of the mainstream type things that get reported most often on the biggest sites. But thankfully, we have the internet, which is ever increasing. I don't think they can last long, guys. They're they're losing all credibility, what little they had.
Yeah, it's great to see the way that the development of the internet, or its continuing development, is outpacing the state in so many ways. Like they're like running circles around each other, just trying to keep up with it, and I don't think they'll be able to.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And they keep
I don't
pushing
think they
ridiculous
have to keep
narratives.
up if they get funding not to.
That's true. They don't have to keep up in that way, but they are losing viewership. And they're losing a lot of their base and their influence because of the internet as well. But you're right. They can keep going.
A lot of the faith that
for sure.
This whole thing relies on.
Oh yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some people still just trust whatever seems nice, which is the temptation, or trust whatever fits their desired narrative, like Russia hacked the election and nonsense like that. But there is just so much more true information out there, and I think eventually it'll rise to the top. Okay, before we get our guest on, one thing I want to talk about briefly, because that's all we have, is I want to, it's not even related, I want to talk a little bit about why in a free market, in a free society, a free economy, we would expect prices to always be decreasing. Because next week or the week after, we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve, and I think it's helpful to understand that inflation of prices is a very abnormal thing and the cause of interruptions in the economy and coercion in the economy, and not the result of the natural economic process itself. So I think if we use phones, I think that's a good like starting point, a starting unit. When Apple wants to sell you an iPhone for $25 million and you want to buy an iPhone from Apple for $0, and so price is arrived by meeting somewhere in between, where Apple figures out how they can make the most by selling it at a particular price that the most number of people will buy, leading to the greatest profit margins. And this process happens with every single purchase people make. Companies want to charge an infinite amount of money, and everyone wants to pay $0 for everything that they buy. And that relationship that people have with one another is the process of price setting. And this happened. And so if we talk about phones, Apple's competitors also want to sell phones and sell you a product that replaces Apple, so you don't buy an iPhone. And they're wanting to sell it for as much as possible, but they can't, because you can go to Apple and get an iPhone for cheaper than what they can provide it for. So there are two options always for businesses to compete with consumers. For consumers, for a similar good, or one good that would be in place of another. One is to make the product better, or in some way that pleases consumers, more appealing, more desirable, and the other is to make it cheaper. And usually companies try to do both. So because of this, there is this constant pressure to make products either better or cheaper, and both, because then you sell more units, then you make more money. The desire for profit causes companies to continue to try to make the same good for a lower cost, to provide directly to consumers at a lower cost. And this competition, and in conjunction with these relationships between buyers and sellers, doesn't just happen at the consumer level. It also happens everywhere in between, with every single piece of Gorilla Glass for every phone, every silicon board, every bit of copper, every bit of microchips. Everyone is constantly trying to get the best product at the lowest price to put into their phone. So there is, at all stages of production, even to the point at which a product gets into a consumer's hands, there is downward pressure on prices. Does that make sense, guys? Would you like to clarify, add, explain something different?
Honestly, I feel like I feel like that's pretty much it. I mean, there are other things that influence it, especially as far as government intervention is concerned, with
Yes.
affecting affecting when and how things can be brought to market. If at all. Um, the bloated regulatory system and all of the laws that cost money that could otherwise be going into innovation or more jobs or whatever have you. There are always very, very many things that affect the price of something, but the major factor in that is mostly competition. Because
Yeah.
if you're not offering your product or service at a certain price and you don't have a monopoly on that, well, then somebody else is going to eat your lunch eventually.
Yeah. And competition and consumer choice. Jeremiah, you like money, specifically currency that is backed by something that is more real. Can you explain a little bit why, without a government monopoly on currency, we would expect the value of money to remain the same or even increase or make it be relatively unchanged?
Okay, well, the first thing is that the financial system is not directly reliant on the printing of currency. The current, everybody's screaming, "Oh, cashless society, is it going to be great or is it going to be shit?" But realistically speaking, we're already in a cashless society where the supply of actual printed money is so much lower than the existent supply of numbers and computer systems.
Yeah, it's at like 7% already, something like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah, crazy.
and it's because of multiple policies, one of which is the Federal Reserve's sort of inflationary money printing in the form of quantitative easing, which is basically a fancy way of saying we made more bills and thought that would fix the problem, and it lets them set the interest rates artificially low. But essentially, what the financial system relies on is the creation of a ton of fake currency. It's not even currency. That's just numbers in a system, in the form of debt, in the form of fractional reserve banking, in the form of a ton of basically Ponzi scheme programs that have no solvency and will fail eventually. And the entire system is based on the idea that you can make something from nothing and still have it be valuable. And that means that everything that is worth something to somebody, because value is ultimately subjective, so you have to find the right market, will be worth something, but it will cost much more because of the giant price hikes as a result of inflationary and essentially undiscretionary money printing policy. And that sort of paradigm makes everything more expensive. It destroys the value of savings, which will not change but will remain static. And it means that any savings that aren't in the form of a physical asset, like in a bear market kind of thing, would lose value exponentially over time, because it's in the sort of unstable asset that requires government intervention to exist in the first place. So that's the general, for economic speak, that's the general idea. For normal, more Joe speak, I'll say the more you have of something, the less it's worth. If you have the one rare baseball card that's worth thousands of dollars, it's worth more than the countless you can buy for $5 in a pack at Walmart. And the way that the money system has been ripped off has been essentially, we're going to take your money system, create a currency system in its place, and create a bunch of booster packs for baseball cards rather than that one valuable one that maintained its value because of its rarity. And so instead of using a stable commodity, they're using invisible numbers in a magic set of computers that have the legal authority to create something from nothing and create scams that the entire country has to rely on.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like this type of math for anyone to even think they they have the ability to know how to do this type of math in a way that makes everything better is completely insane. Like this is such a tall order. I don't care if you have teams of people. Like an economy is made up of so many different things, so many different motivations, and people with all different desires. Like there is
And
no
it changes
way.
every day.
Yes, constantly. I mean, and many times within a day. Like there is no
Yeah.
way that you can centrally plan this.
And that's one of the cool things, because if you look at central planning, there's a great essay by Leonard Reed on it. It's called iPencil. I used
We'll
to
link to
hand
the
out
video.
copies of it at my college. But and I'll read, like, I guess the first several paragraphs, because the rest of it is something that somebody should read on their own. But it's very short. I recommend it. If you want to hand your kid something, if your kid's like 12, 14 area, hand them this, because it's fantastic and it's very easy to understand. iPencil. It's told from the perspective of a pencil. I am a lead pencil, the ordinary wooden pencil familiar to all boys and girls and adults who can read and write. Writing is both my vocation and my avocation. That's all I do. You may wonder why I should write a genealogy.
How long is this, Jeremiah?
Oh, it's just a couple sentences. The
Okay.
first several paragraphs. Well, to begin with, my story is interesting, and next, I'm a mystery, more so than a tree or a sunset or even a flash of lightning. But sadly, I'm taken for granted by those who use me, and if I were a mere incident and without background, this supercilious attitude relegates me to the level of the commonplace. This is a species of the grievous error in which mankind cannot too long persist without peril. For the wise G.K. Chesterton observed, "We are perishing for want of wonder, not for want of wonders." I pencil, simple though I appear to be, merit your wonder and awe, a claim I shall attempt to prove. In fact, you can understand me. No, that's too much to ask of anyone. Or sorry, if you can understand me, if you can become aware of the miraculousness which I symbolize, you can help save the freedom mankind is so unhappily losing. I have a profound lesson to teach, and I can teach this lesson better than can an automobile or an airplane or a mechanical dishwasher, because, well, I am seemingly so simple. Simple, yet not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me. This sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Especially when it's realized that there are about 1.5 billion of my kind produced in the USA each year. Pick me up and look me over. What do you see? Not much meets the eye. There's some wood, lacquer, the printed labeling, graphite lead, a bit of metal, and a eraser. And it goes on to describe essentially, in very simple terms, the economic calculation problem, how if nobody can manage to make a single pencil on their own by mining all of the materials and producing it, by a factory labor, then no one person should be able to centrally plan any sort of aspect of the economy either.
Yeah, and the way that works with money is the same in the context of a free society, where all these forces and all these different individual preferences of the people who want to use the money and the people who mint it and the people who accept it all work together without any planning whatsoever to create something that is used as a means for exchange. And those same forces that make this pencil, which contains all these different products and manufacture all these different, land resources, you produced in all these different ways to make a simple pencil, and there's billions of them, it work together to make a pencil also super cheap. So cheap that people give them away, even though these products, the way that they can come together and be that cheap, it's mind-blowing. And there is a good video on the pencil that we'll link to in the YouTube video. But those same forces also would come together in a free society to work on currency. And what companies who are providing money, something used as a means of exchange to consumers, would want to provide them is money which retains its value, because no consumer wants to have money that is continually going down in value. And if that is what companies are providing them, they will simply go somewhere else. If that's what's happening with, X company's banknotes, or if somehow gold production increases massively, people will switch over to silver so that they can maintain the value of what they earn, the product of their labor, which is typically some form of currency because it's easy to exchange. So the same, we don't think about money in economic terms usually as a product. But that's because the state has taken it over and has devalued the currency about 97% since 1913, which incidentally is the creation of the Federal Reserve. And the reason why in every single area of production, in every single area of consumer goods, the reason why we don't see a constant decrease in prices, despite the market forces that always want to bring prices down and increase quality, the reason we don't see that is because of government control of the currency. And we'll talk more about that another time. And the creation of the Federal Reserve is another one of those scenes from a movie, pretty much, like where the evil geniuses get together in a room and create laws that form this organization so they can rule the world. That's pretty much what the creation of the Federal Reserve is. So it's an interesting story, at least.
Hey, I wanted to touch on something.
Yeah,
really quick.
yeah, please do.
Listening to the Giant Beast cast yesterday, and it just kind of reminded me of like the short-term memory that a lot of people have. They were talking about like, filing your taxes or whatever, and then they started talking about something that reminded me of, like, have you ever watched like a movie from like the 70s or something, and
Yes.
and one of the scenes, maybe they pull into a gas station and you see like the price on the gas station billboard is like, it's like 30 cents or whatever. It's dirt fucking cheap, compared to today's standards. And one of the guys was talking about how he just had a regular old savings account, and in 1991 that savings account was paying out 6% interest, like, which is fucking unheard of now. Like, you would not see
No, you can't. If there was 6%
like, that is
interest
amazing
now,
by today's standards.
People wouldn't know what to do with inflation. There would be, I think, the way the economy would be shown to be what it is, completely weak and disintegrating, would be really problematic for the powers that be.
Yeah, it's just another one of those small ways that you are kind of guided without even realizing you're being guided.
Yep.
When they are having the interest rates so low, it really creates no incentive for you to really save more than you absolutely have to. So it encourages you to spend your money, to keep your money in circulation, to maybe go into debt to get something you want, instead of saving your money, earning some interest, and then maybe using the capital that you have to get something you want.
Yeah.
So, it's like there's so much going on behind the scenes that if you just stop for 5 seconds to pay any amount of attention to it, it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are always moments where you want to just look at your own shadow and run back into your hole, afraid, like I'll stick my head back in my turtle shell. All right. Let's bring on Joseph Naugler. Can we do that? Are you able to do that, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I should be able to. I should be able to just add him to the call here.
Sounds good. And I don't know much about him,
let me
sadly.
confirm that he's ready.
All right, you confirm that he's ready, and then you shut us down and add him to the conversation, and we'll begin it. What was it? Oh, and interest rates, man. Those are also one of those centrally controlled things that come about naturally through interactions of individuals, and what they are is, in terms of interest rates, are just a measure of risk, of what the people think the risk factor is to loaning money to this individual. So then people aren't able to calculate how risky certain sorts of investments are and how good investments are in different areas of the market and with different people, because the interest rates for many things are given down from a central planner that doesn't know anything. Then you have things like, in
some cases they're told like you cannot measure your risk in this way, which encourages people to make loans to people that they normally wouldn't, or encourages people to take out loans that they normally wouldn't when they probably shouldn't. And then you end up with people defaulting on their payments because they were getting cheap money that they shouldn't have been able to get.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though you don't like it and it doesn't sound nice, having a higher interest rate for someone who is higher risk makes a lot of sense, and in the long term prevents a lot of economic destruction, especially things like 2008 massive financial collapse.
Yeah,
Looks like we're getting Joseph on here. I'm not sure. I don't know much about him or his family. Is he up? Is he on? Joseph, can you hear us?
He's trying.
He's trying. Okay. All right.
Let's try this again. I'll add him again here.
All right. I remember this conversation I was having a few years back with this guy, and he was one of those people that is just like, man, I got it figured out, man. I got it all figured out. Like all of it. Like he was on board with inflation is bad, and but he was just like in his head. He thought he was the guy that had this central plan for everything to be better. And he was just like, yeah, never mind all this money stuff, man. He was like, we can just get some land, and
here we are.
Hey, oh, it's an entire family.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh wow, I love your crew, Joseph.
That is a great pick.
Oh, there.
All right.
How you guys doing?
How are you doing? Can you hear us?
Oh.
Hello. I think there's a big delay.
Able to fit into one little screen.
Yeah, it certainly is. Joseph, who's going to be speaking? Do you prefer to be called Joseph or Joe, or do you care?
Is that?
You're having issues hearing me, it sounds like.
Joseph will be fine.
Okay. And then, wow. Oh boy. If you're listening in the audio only, there are how many kids in the background there? 9?
Oh my god!
So we're all a little
10,
bit.
There are 10 in
10 and your wife. See, that is why we're all kind of sitting here slack-jawed, amazed by this. So, Joseph, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, please.
Well, a little bit about myself is, I guess fundamentally, I'm just a very intimate father and a husband.
Nice.
And those are my main goals in life, is to be as intimate as I can be with my children and my wife. We've been together. We just celebrated 23 years.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And my wife runs a pet grooming business, and I homeschool the kids and run the homestead here. It works for us. And, some of the older kids that you see in the pictures here, they go and help mom out at the work. It's part of how we homeschool. We teach them a trade.
Awesome.
The customer service and the bookkeeping and stuff. So, but we just, it all, I guess it comes down to, a lot of people ask us, because we homeschool, about the socialization. And I say, it's a peer-based kind of society, and I want to change that to a family-based society. We no longer have grandpas sitting their grandchildren on their lap telling them moral relative stories.
Yeah.
We've kind of lost that connection. We've lost our connection with our food, with our the way we pass on, with death even. I mean, a lot of people send their elders to old folks home and stuff. So I've really focused on trying to change that.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you have a classroom full of kids in your house anyway. So thank you.
Yes.
First, thank you for being a compassionate father that wants to be intimate with his children. I know you don't need my thanks, but I just want you to know I really appreciate the way you are making the future a better place by loving your children well. Would you...
That's all I figure. You can push a lot of laws, you can push a lot of policies and political beliefs, but fundamentally, Gandhi said it right, just be the change you want to see in the world, and that's kind of where I'm starting.
Yeah. Can you tell us first a little bit, tell us what a homestead is, and then can you tell us why you wanted to start one?
Okay. Well, I like to consider us a quasi-homesteader.
Okay.
And I use the word quasi because a lot of people want to push their purity, their ideas, and how they think. And, oh, well, you're just not a real homesteader because you're doing this, this, and this. Or I have internet, so I'm not a real off-gridder. And it gets kind of annoying having those conversations all the time. So I just kind of interject the word quasi and just, hey, this is our concept. But as far as homesteading, what we do is we're trying to, I studied psychology, and I noticed a lot of people who suffer from anxiety and depression are disconnected from their food. I mean, look what happens when there's a storm. People run to get their milk bread and their milk sandwiches and stuff. So I just feel it's important that we connect fundamentally with how we grow our food, how we kill our food, how we raise our food, and those things. And so our homestead, and we kind of do it on the I also add the word wilderness because we foliage. We go out in the wild. We know what mushrooms and what plants we can eat, which ones are used for medicine, and which ones are poisonous.
That's awesome.
But the more my children, I have seen them so fundamental and grounded in who they are and in their environment, knowing these things. So they, my children, even after what we went through in May of 2015, they don't suffer from a lot of those things that other people suffer from, the anxiety and depression and things. So that's fundamentally what our concept of homesteading is.
Okay. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit, or if you're willing to, about what you went through in 2015? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. We're very big on sharing our testimony and sharing our way of life, and things like that. And we know what it does. It inspires some people, and but for the most part, in our culture, with such a politically charged environment, it does cause a lot of contention. But we oftentimes, I think it's happened like 7 or 8 times, we've had people try to use the state and its overreaching abilities that they've acquired to target us. We've had conversations over circumcision, and people have called CPS, these anonymous calls, which I know are unconstitutional because we have a right to face our accuser.
Right.
But there was an anonymous call to CPS from a woman who was upset that there was 2 women involved. One of them was upset that I deleted her on Facebook. And I know, it's just bizarre. And so I went over to where they were living, and they're renting a trailer from the people that actually own the place, and they have a great well. And we have to cart our water in just like our neighbors do. They cart their water in. And the owners of the property are preppers, and we got along with them quite well. We share ideas, and we share prepping, resources and things. And they had given me permission. Well, I went over to get some water in, and she started acting, aggressive and hostile and such. And she had another woman, and they were kind of approaching us or whatever, but they had never been on our property. They had never met us or our children. And she sent some nasty messages to my wife and said she was going to call CPS. So this had been the second time as we lived here, because we had video recorded the first time that sheriff of Breckenridge County had come to our property and was in my wife's face and threatening, emergency removal order. At that time, 18 months prior, my wife was ready to give birth any day now. So I was being diplomatic, pretty much, as we were exercising our rights. He was being very aggressive. We called the state police. They showed up, and we allowed CPS to talk to our children. And it wasn't like they said, "Oh, are you guys abused or this or that?" It was, "Are you happy?" And I was like, "Go to a public school. 90% of the kids there are going to tell you you're not happy. You're going to remove them."
Right.
But it basically just went down to that, and they never came back out. They never were concerned about anything they saw, any issues or anything.
Really?
Okay.
So 18 months later, they get another anonymous call and they want to do it. Well, in the state of Kentucky, anonymous calls are not probable cause. But much like the mailman, they're allowed to come knock on your door and say, hey, this is our concern. And if you tell them to leave, to come back with a warrant, they got to respect that. And so, and it was basically that. And we recorded the conversations with the sheriff, and he makes mention of a couple posts that we made on Facebook on how to exercise your rights and how to deal with police. And he's making these kind of issues, threatening that he'll get SWAT team involved and all sorts of, and he just basically tells us we don't have any rights. And without any, off of an anonymous call, without any probable cause or imminent danger, for him to justify it, just on the fact that we weren't cooperating and we were exercising our right, he gets a judge out of Breckinridge County to issue an emergency removal order. And it starts off with him pulling my wife over and taking the two oldest boys, arresting her for disorderly conduct. Go ahead and get him taken over.
Wow.
This is
For
killing.
disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. But in the recording, you can hear that she's just exercising her rights. I want to see a warrant.
Yeah.
On what grounds? Why did you even pull me over? He never once says anything. He just says, well, I've got it. And even upon her saying, I'd like to see the warrant, never once did they hand over one. So he just takes the kid, and then I show up because I'm at a friend's and she had called me and I says, oh, they're going to kill her. They're going to shoot her. My wife, she knows she's right. I don't care how big you are. I don't care how many guns you have. If she knows she's in the right, she won't stop. And so I had my friend drive me up, and I get out, and my wife and the boys are in 8 different squad cars. And at first he grabs his gun and goes to get a little threatening with me, and I take a step back. By this time, traffic had kind of built up. And I was able to get her phone, which had the recordings in it. They were trying to get it, and it had flung out of her hands and into the grass, and they weren't able to find it. But I was able to get it before they did.
Good.
But then he gives me, on top of everything, he gives me 14 hours to drop the other 8 kids off, or I'll face 8 counts of felony custodial interference, which didn't make sense to me.
With your own children?
Yes. And the fact that what was the imminent danger or probable cause that's so imminent that my kids had to be emergency removed, that he's giving me 14. I could have been in Mexico by then.
Right.
I could have seeked out any evidence. I just could have been completely gone, aside from any felony charges he threatened me with.
Right.
But
they were going to hit you with a felony based off of basically
dropped
nothing.
Them off the next morning. I don't want to battle. Right. Just because we exercised our rights, and they make it clear. You can hear the recording. He makes it clear that he's been monitoring our Facebook pages, and he's very upset about us teaching people their rights and how to deal with police.
How dare
Very
you.
upset.
Well, there's that old
so
slogan that don't steal the
didn't wanna
government
have
hates
to-
competition, but this is don't kidnap the government hates competition.
Right. So I didn't want to have to face felony charges on top of everything else that we could have been looking at. Because the government once targets they already had to go for just an arrest, which are just misdemeanor charges, class A, misdemeanor. So I dropped the other 8 kids off, and we walk in and I dropped them off, and I tried to make it. I mean, we let our kids know clearly what's going on and what's going to happen. You can hear it in the recording. I let them know I'm preparing them emotionally and mentally for this. So, because I don't know how long this is going to take. Kentucky's one of the worst, has some of the worst corruption in family court and CPS.
Really?
We know people where no crimes have been charged, nothing has been charged. And they still for years don't have their kids. People are like, they're amazed that we got our kids back after 8 weeks. And that breaks my heart. That really does. That they're just tearing families apart like this. What we've seen is so much money involved. There's so much politics involved. I mean, when I first walked in the courtroom that first Thursday, I mean, I'm just walking in the family court, and the first question they ask me is, Mr. Naugler, do you recognize our authority? And I was like,
wow.
What? Yes. I was like, what does that have to do with anything? You have my kids. You've got the guns. I'm here. Trust me. I recognize your imaginary or not, your authority.
Yeah, your superior firepower.
That's right. I mean, literally, you walk in, and it's a small little room, and on this side of the wall, there were like 20 sheriff deputies, marshals, and state police standing there. On this side of the wall, there was like 20 CPS workers, and then you had our lawyer, then us, and the table was just full.
So this was just all about getting you to fall in line more than anything else.
You know, that's what it was, because in this meeting, and we're going to get a hold of the transcripts. Right now, our case isn't closed, and it's almost been 2 years, and it's just absolutely ridiculous, the absurdity that we've had to go through and everything. But
yeah, there's no case.
Right. No charges filed, no nothing. They spent 8 weeks interrogating my kids. Okay, this is, to go back, Thursday, they took the 2 olders Wednesday night. I dropped the other 8 kids off Thursday morning, and then we had to go to court Thursday afternoon. So I got Nicole out of jail just before we went to court. And we show up, and we're sitting there. And so my lawyer's like, well, what's the situation? What are our concerns? And so he just kind of, well, that's not against the law. That's not against the law. And what it broke down to was one of my Facebook pictures show one of my kids walking on the dirt ground, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just concerned that that's your cabin floor." And I says, "Well, first of all, it's not illegal in the state of Kentucky to have a dirt floor in your cabin. There are a lot of people in the Appalachian areas that have dirt floors in their cabin."
Right.
I says, "But if that's your issue, then," my lawyer said, "well, let's put this off for 72 hours and have the cabinet come down that Friday, that next morning, and just inspect it." So 2 workers and our lawyer met that Friday, and she was like, "Oh, I see. You've got an actual floor." She's like, and I told her we plan on building a bigger cabin. I says, but she's like, "Well, this cabin's fine. I see how you opened it up with the warmer weather." She says, "Just before winter, just make sure you have the 4th wall up." And I said, "Yeah, that's fine. We just took the 4th wall down to open it up into like a picnic area." And she said everything was fine. And as we were walking off, she could see where we had a little, because the property we bought had a bunch of trailers on it that kind of were broken down with furniture still in it. It was weird, but there was a lot to clean up, and we had a staging area where we had metal recycling stuff. She's like, "Could you just fence in this area? That'll just, not that there's any laws, but just for my concern and, for the children's safety." And I says, "That's fine. Not a problem. I'll fence in this area." So she's like, "Okay, good." So we were planning on going back to court on Monday, and everything was going to be fine. They were going to say everything's fine and the kids are going to be returned. But then my older son from a previous engagement showed up. He just walks into this courtroom and gives the bizarrest testimony of sexual abuse and abuse. I hadn't seen him since he was 4 years old. Yes, I hadn't seen this kid since he was 4.5 years old. And the court documents from New Hampshire, because we were living in Texas at the time, we were expecting our 3rd child. So we had no money to go up and deal with the situation that was going on in New Hampshire. So, but the situation in New Hampshire, there was no allegations of that at all. So he gave this bizarre testimony. The court figured, well, that's good enough for us to reconvene in a week, and we'll investigate those original charges. We'll request those court documents, which they did, and they saw there was never any allegations of sexual abuse. And they also interrogated the sheriff, and CPS decided they would sit down and talk to every single one of my children. So over that week, they did just that. So Friday comes along, and they say, "Okay," and we're staying at a friend's house. And so they say, "Well, we're allowed to give you supervised visits. We're going to let you have your children back from Friday until Monday no, Quentin, I don't want him up there. Nope. And Friday until Monday when we go back to court, and you're fine. Your children are amazing. They're very well spoken, very well mannered, very intelligent. They're articulate. They couldn't say enough words to describe how awesome we are." And so they kept saying every day they would show up, they'd say, "Well, we're 100% sure that the kids are going home." So Monday shows up, and there's bickering going on between the guardian ad litem and everybody, and there's arguing. So finally the judge goes, okay, And she looks at the sheriff. She says, "Sheriff, on the record, this is his testimony on the record. Sheriff, is there any reason why these children should be returned home?" And his testimony was, "No, they're not breaking any laws. I think the way they're living is kind of neat. And there's no reason why the children shouldn't be returned home." And so she looks at the cabinet, CPS, and says asks them the same question: "Is there any reason why these children shouldn't go home?" And they go on even further, like, "No, these kids are amazing. This family's amazing." They described what they walked into. They're like, "We didn't even tell them we were coming. We walked in. The people that we were staying at had 6 kids, and then our 10 kids." And they're like, "There was no fighting going on. It was raining out all day. They were cooped up inside, but there was no fighting, no arguing. They were getting along, and they were just going on about how amazing we are and how loving we are." And so, but the guardian ad litem starts sitting there saying, "Well, they could be brainwashed." And the cabinet's like, "Have you met these kids?" There's no.
So
I
they're
mean,
just reaching at this
Yeah,
point.
they're just making stuff up. Brainwashed in what way? Oh, you mean to not be totally in line with your statist paradigm?
They could be Russian spies. I mean, you can't be too sure.
That's it. And so the cabinet goes, "Are you kidding me? They told us that Dad smokes pot. They said Dad smokes pot, and he also uses his disciplinary method is push-ups and running laps. Sometimes he pulls out a switch and we get a switch on the butt. We haven't used that method in quite some time, but and they even said there's no negative effects to the marijuana smoking. He has no criminal background. There's no violent background. There's nothing illegal about spanking a kid on a butt in Kentucky." And so they're arguing. And so the cabinet, the guardian ad litem goes on even more with this whole, well, he could, they're Christians and they're a large family, and the father's a patriarch, kind of blowhard kind of a thing, and he's just manipulating and controlling these people, and if you've met my wife, we both wear pants in this family.
Yeah.
So they're just
You might be a
resorting to
blowhard, but
assassination.
not a patriarch.
But so it just turned into, well, we're going to keep the kids and we're going to put them through. My kids over those 8-week period met with psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors of a plethora of different specialists, from bone scans to brain scans to heart scans to you name it. They were dropping money like it was candy just to have my kids interrogated. They met with educators, and every time they came back, there would be a lot of political jargon like, "Oh, the children weren't allowed to go to public school," or "the children weren't vaccinated," and "the children don't go to see a doctor on a regular basis." Dad stitched the oldest kid's finger back on himself, and the finger's in good shape, but and then at the bottom it always say the kids are healthy, they have no recommendation. And it was just, you don't need to add all that other stuff to say my kid's healthy, and let's get on with the show. But oh no,
I still have you.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear us, but you're still
sorry,
on.
I had somebody
I can
calling.
hear you.
Oh, gotcha.
But so it turned into the next 7 weeks of them doing this to my children. And then after 7 weeks, because I did test positive for marijuana twice, and then they said, if you give us a negative test, we'll lift supervision and we'll be able to place them with you. So I had stopped smoking sometime. It took like 60 days to get out of my freaking system.
Yeah.
But I finally cleaned the marijuana out of my system, and they were lifted supervision. So after 8 weeks, the children were placed back with us, and whatnot. And we kept kind of going on, and we still had these criminal charges. I was facing.
Are you freezing up a little bit?
Yeah, Joseph's cutting out. Now we'll see if he comes back. We'll let him talk. I've been.
Maybe you should try to reconnect too, because I know Skype acts funny after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that's true. I'll let you guys. I've been kind of hogging all the questions, so.
Misdemeanor menace.
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
You guys, he recorded every conversation we could, except for actually in the courthouse. In the courtroom, in the family courtroom. The judge would not let us bring our cell phones in there. But we can order those transcripts. I'm not sure if she's gonna seal some of it because they were talking about that. The last court date is sealing some of it. But we recorded everything, every interaction, every phone call, everything. And so my lawyer calls me up and says, listen, you guys have a case. They violated your rights. These things can take years to resolve. He says, and you see how bizarre this has been from the beginning. He says, now I'll defend you if that's what you want, but I'm going to come home at the end of the day. I'm going to eat my steak and I'm going to make love to my wife and I'm going to go to bed. He says, they're going to find something. They're going to. Because at one point, the county attorney walks in and says, well, Your Honor, because they're not being cooperative in their criminal charges, because we were like, no, we're not plea dealing. I was not guilty of menacing, and my wife was not guilty of disorderly conduct or resisting arrest. And that's it. We'll take it to trial. We don't care. And he knew he had no case. He knew that there was going to be lawsuits. They knew that the county screwed up. And so he comes into family court and he says, Your Honor, because they're not being cooperative in their criminal cases, I want to add contempt charges in their family court case. And he actually put two of our friends on the witness list, making it to where we can't even talk to them now. And we're like, so we couldn't find out what was going on, what was going to be said, or else we would have felony witness tampering charges as well. He made that clear too, that if we tried to contact them and whatever. So we're now looking at contempt charges, which is 6 months jail time for each of us. And she was about to give birth, coming up.
Oh.
So my lawyer made it clear that they were going to find something. They were going to hold us in contempt. He said he'd already known. He was telling us that it had already been discussed, that district court was going to find us in contempt, put us both in jail, take our kids away, get them immune, put them in public school. Nicole would have the baby in jail. They would take the baby. And yeah, we'll get the kids back when we get out after 6 months.
Under new terms.
But look at all the damage in 6 months of my kids being separated from each other and separated from us. And the foster care is not a pleasant place. And my older kids were in a detention center up in Louisville. My kids were like, they just never seen anything that bizarre. People flipping out, throwing tables, fighting each other.
Oh, those environments are insane.
All sorts of bizarre. And so he said, they're going to hold you in contempt. And they're going to find something. Now, the circuit court, which is also in the county, they're going to rubber stamp what district court did. That's going to cost you, when you appeal, you go to circuit court first. That's going to cost you $10,000, and they're going to rubber stamp it. My lawyer's like, this has already been discussed. And so he says, in appeals court, which is where it goes next, that's going to cost you another $10,000, and you'll win, but that could take up to 3 years. And I was like, holy crap. So he's like, well, here's the prosecutor wants to plea deal. So I was like, well, what does he want? At first it was some bizarre thing. And so I was like, no, I want my wife's charges dropped or whatever, just not dealt with, whatever they called it, deferred or whatever. They just wanted her to admit that he had a reason to pull her over. So that way they can, but we've already talked to lawyers. That still doesn't negate from a lawsuit. And then they wanted me to plead guilty on my Class B misdemeanor. I don't have a criminal background. I'm 40 years old and I have no criminal background. So they wanted to give me like 60 days jail time. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And so I ended up talking it down. I ended up doing 4 days jail time, and I did an alpha plea, which means I maintain my innocence. But the county, they're going to screw me over anyways. So This is how we're going to play the game. And then family court, we would both plead dependent. Yeah, dependency for living in a dilapidated home and because I smoked marijuana.
Dilapidated?
And,
You're fucking me. That's serious?
But dependency. Right. And which just means basically I can't work at a daycare center or an old folks home or whatever.
That's truly insane.
We went ahead and said, okay, we'll do it. And that was in November of 2015. So, and it was all supposed to go away. So they rush our criminal pleas through. I pleaded and I said I would do the 4 days jail time. Nicole said, yeah, he had probable cause to pull me over. And then as we're getting ready to do the family thing, the guardian ad litem starts throwing a fit. Just starts throwing a fit, talking about she wants us to be forensically evaluated. Forensically evaluated, all of us, all of our children and us. So
now what exactly?
The judge goes ahead and orders it in our deposition, which is supposed to be it. It's like, and the CPS worker is like, she's never heard of this. Usually people have forensic evaluations to see if the children should be returned, not only after the children have been returned, but after custody has been returned.
Right.
So the CPS has been beside themselves this whole time. My lawyer's been beside themselves their whole time. And it's just amazing. So they did this forensic evaluations. They ordered them. It was like a year later. They still hadn't gotten any of us in. We just kept going to court saying, well, the lady had her father die that runs the forensic evaluation, and then other stuff going on. And so finally they do me and Nicole. And now we're talking over a year later. So we go back into court, and the results haven't come back from him, but I convinced the judge, I speak up, and I convinced the judge to sit there and say, well, let's just call off the kids being evaluated. And if we find something in the parents, then we'll have the kids evaluated. So that was fine. So we set up another court date, and they get the results in. And basically, it's 39 pages of political opinion. At the end of it, it says these parents are not suffering from any mental illness, but because, and she goes further. She says, and she even states in her evaluation that her test doesn't measure anything she's about to say, but that the forensic evaluations that she actually executed prove that we don't suffer from any mental illness. But because we're so adamant and outspoken about our lifestyle, about our political opinions, and about our faith, that it puts us in a contention environment to where people react contentious towards us, and that puts our children in danger. And I was like, what?
So this is like blaming a woman who may dress a little scantily for being raped.
And they want to argue that that they want to see progress with this, and I was like, what are you guys talking about? So I speak up again, and I tell her that, listen, these tests show that we're not mentally ill, we're not suffering from any mental illness that would put our children in danger. As far as the test is concerned, as far as how they evaluate and according to law and the psychological, the different things, schizophrenia, whatever they have on that list. And so I tell them that, listen, because the guardian ad litem, my lawyer started talking about, are you going to, get every Amish person in here? Are you going to get every homeschool kid in here and start about, are you actually going to change Kentucky law and say that you need to have every homeschool kid evaluated? And so the lady's like, no, because they're not sitting here in our courtroom. The Nauglers are sitting here in my courtroom. So at this point, I speak up and I say, just because we're sitting here doesn't mean we've lost our rights. We still have our rights. And I have yet to see a charge with us being charged with anything, nonetheless convicted of anything.
Right.
And I tell the lady that the tests, I tell the judge that, these tests, these forensic evaluations show we're not suffering from any mental illness, and that the cabinet, who is the investigative arm for family court, has testified profusely every time we've walked in that we're a very loving family. Our kids are very intelligent, very well-mannered, very well-spoken, and that they're very impressed with us every time. And but the guardian ad litem is she's one of those people that got really upset when Trump won. She's a liberal Democrat, and she's very anti-religious and anti-large family and anti-traditional. We seem to be dealing with a lot of those people at this moment. For the past 20 months, we've have a fanatic liberal blog writer who has been writing blogs for quite some time about us. Everything we post. Do
you mind telling us who that is? So
I'm curious. I'd like to look up on them.
don't know if it's my phone or you guys. I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
Just do you mind telling us who that is? If you aren't comfortable with that, then that's fine. But it'd be interesting to read what she has to say.
I'm very I'm very comfortable with dropping names. The blog writer, you mean?
Yes.
Are you referring to the blog writer?
Yes.
There's a different volume on this.
Yeah, the blog writer.
Well,
we can't hear you
You
at all
silenced
right
yourself successfully.
Yeah, we can't hear anything right now.
You changed the microphone volume.
Speaker.
You're cutting it out.
That's here. Okay, hold on, guys. Sorry, guys.
There you go.
Maybe a little bit.
You should have heard the technical issues we had last week. We were much worse than that.
I sound like you're whispering, and I can't figure out how to turn up my volume here. Well, the lady that writes the blog, her name is Sally Davis. And the name of the blog is Blessed Little Blog. And she's been writing it since when?
About a year. Maybe a little over a year.
A little over a year. And first of all, they have no facts about family court because no facts have been released except for the ones we've released. Like the cabinet, the CPS saying that the only thing they found out of everything, they have access to all the results, all the tests, everything. The only thing they found, they substantiate, is that educational neglect. And they specify, not because our kids are retarded or anything, but just because we didn't tell Breckenridge County School Board that we were homeschoolers. That was it. That's all
no.
they found. And
dare
we've
you.
released that paper.
This is insane.
I wish I could. Well, do you know how to use this at all? Mhm.
Well, you have figured out, Joseph?
I got it.
All right.
Say that again.
No, never mind. Let's try to wrap this up. It sounds like things are getting a little bit more difficult for us to communicate. I don't want to spend too much time in silence. I don't know if you can hear
You
me.
guys know how to turn the volume up?
Can't hear anything I say.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right.
No, it's not your
Skype.
No, we can figure stuff out. Joseph, can you hear what I'm saying? Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've got my ear up too, so I'm sure you're
Okay.
seeing a picture of my.
Okay, yeah, it looks great.
In all
Looks
of your bearded
fantastic.
glory.
I think given these issues and our inability to ask you questions, I think we're gonna wrap it up with you and let you go. Maybe have you on another time and let you kind of
Okay.
conclude
I
and stuff.
definitely want to hear more. from
Yeah,
you guys.
This is just kind of a difficult conversation right now, and we'll have you send us a message in the Facebook stuff of whatever it is that you would like us to link to and tell people about. We will do it then, and you can do it right now because we can hear you. If you want to tell listeners about anything,
let everybody know if there's any way that you know, if you need any help dealing with any of this, if there's any way people can reach out to try to help.
Okay. Yeah, I like this. I wish I could hear. I think that goes in the
right.
I don't think so. Dang it, I was driving me insane. Well, if you guys want issues, I can hear. Here I go. It just came on. Go ahead, say something again.
Yo.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I got you now.
Wow.
I'm hearing you loud and clear now.
Okay. So, this woman, I'm looking at the Blessed Little Blog here, and first off, I seem to remember seeing this woman's posts before, and they were pretty awful. But I see this post on one of the first pages, that says that you guys don't know how to homestead. So that's interesting.
Right. That's why I say I changed the word to quasi, because they want to. What they do is they stage conflicts like this, like bantering back and forth, and then of course when they come over to our Blessed Little Homestead page and they go on and on and on. They eventually get banned, and then they say, well, that's a problem, and then now that's drama, and now they hate us for it, and all that other stuff. But yeah, that's why I say quasi, because it's not going to be the same. And I have yet to meet two people that are homesteading the same or farming the same, or there's a lot of different methods.
Yeah, it sounds like quasi allows you to avoid criticism.
This is a fucking weird project. Like, Blessed Little Blog is a weird project. You can't out Naugler the Naugler.
Yeah, that is really weird.
Like, this amounts to me to
and it's
nothing
turned
more
into
than like
another
slander
woman.
or something, or libel or a hit piece or something.
Yep. Oh, they add, well, in our humble opinion. So because we're somewhat public figures, they're going to talk about us like that. And on some level, I get it. I mean, you see what public figures go through. Trump, I mean, Jesus, is he going to sue everybody that talks like this? And I get it. I'm not here to banter, but where I draw the distinction with them is they market their blog. They market and advertise it, literally pay.
If they tell people, oh, if you want to know the truth about the Nauglers, go here, and then say it's
the
just
truth about the Nauglers? What the hell?
Right.
Yeah, and it's all just conjecture. It's all just
right. I'm sure they could
stuff.
just ask you if they wanted to know the truth about you.
Well, everything we say is a lie, so there's no point in asking us. You should ask the people who've never met us and who just internet because we're the experts.
Right. Yeah, these people have never met us. But here's the scary part: is we've linked these people back to the sheriff's department in Breckenridge County. Mm-hmm. And we can only speculate, but we believe that there's actually money involved from the county. Really? Because we've got a lot of screenshots of people being recruited, people, different people with different skill set, like bloggers or investigators or, just little antagonists. These people have all been recruited to do it. And it's a handful of people. I'd say about 75 people with maybe another 100 for support. And they go everywhere. I mean, they'll go to every social media place, everywhere, and banter. I remember one time we went over to the governor of Kentucky's page and asked him, hey, you promised you were going to audit CPS and deal with the funds that are involved in that and whatnot. And they went over and just started trashing us. Everywhere we go, they're there. And so now we also got a woman who's running it's called Naugler Nation. It's a Facebook page that, and she does a podcast, and that's all it is. Just people calling in. Just nobody's really met us. I think they've had one person call in that's met us. She used to work with me. She worked with me for a week and a half at Burger King before she was fired for trying to procure drugs from other employees. Plus, the other employees just didn't like her because she came in very arrogant. It was a management training store, and I got placed in my store, and she got fired. And she tries to swap the story around that I was the one that got fired, and
she thought we were.
And I was like, anybody could just call the company and verify employment times, but
verifying information that's an old way of doing things. We don't need to do that. It's the age of the internet. Just report it and move on.
Yeah.
Right.
This is insane.
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Naugler Nation Twitter.
I'm not even sure.
It's all just shit from like the same sorts of things that the blog talked about, only talked about on Blog Talk Radio. Yep. Blog Talk Radio allows this sort of harassment.
I mean, it's a form of free speech.
Everyone tell.
Well, I mean, on Blog Talk Radio, it might not be. It like on Blog Talk Radio, they might have policies against this sort of thing. Right. I would pursue that.
Yeah, and on the Naugler Nation Facebook page, it just says it's hosted by the blessed little trolls and their minions. Like these people really don't seem to have any better form of entertainment than to just mess with your family, which is it's crazy.
Yes,
horrific.
And here's the kicker: is they'll tell you two things. They'll tell you I'm a fat, lazy piece of crap Wimplin, and that my wife is a toothless hag who just keeps popping out babies. And then on top of that, they'll tell you that they're representing thousands of people that we've wronged over our lifespan, and they're just all those thousands of people are just terrified of us. I'm like, well, which one is it? Are we
Right.
Jimmy Hoffa and the mob, or are we worthless people? And so it just they run in circles. And when people
That's sad, man.
ask for evidence, and when people ask, like, they've actually contacted clients, because we run a pet grooming business out of Radcliffe, Kentucky, and we've had clients tell us that they've been in contact with, and the one woman was really good friends of ours, and she responded with, well, I'm really good friends with Nicole and her husband and their family, and because the lady goes off and talks, this and this, and she said, I've got evidence if you want to see it. So the woman said, well, I'd like to see the evidence, and the woman was like, well, if you don't believe me, that's fine. I'm just telling you from one, a soldier wife to another soldier wife, and if you don't want to believe me, that's fine. And not once have these people ever produced evidence of anything they ever accuse us of. Like, they'll tell you that I've got a history of violence. I mean, if that was the case, the media would have shown it. It would have been like, oh,
yeah, that would have came out already.
Couple with a history. Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't have had your kids with you.
All over. It would have been.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't have been off-grid family loses children. It would have been violent criminals get their kids taken.
People like this are really, really problematic. Like I've had experience with people like this in the past, and it's one thing to deal with someone who doesn't like you because they have a legitimate gripe, because usually you can work that out. You can approach them and you can figure out what the problem is, and if you both care enough to make it better, you can do that. But when people are when they're just out to get you just because, like, that makes people very, very dangerous, because there's really nothing you can do to get them off of you.
Right.
Like, like their sole goal is just to destroy you. And it's very scary to have to deal with people like that.
They say we're public figures, and I would say we definitely have slander and liable lawsuits that we could file, but we don't have celebrity money.
Yeah, how much time and money are you willing to waste on that?
Exactly. And I've prayed about this, and and I've come to a logical conclusion that, okay, our names are getting run through the gutter, and whatever. I wasn't planning on running for president anyways. I don't believe in rulers, and I don't believe that people are, any of that. So at least people are talking about these issues. They're talking about CPS. They're talking about family court. They're talking about corruption. They're talking about homeschooling. They're talking about homesteading. They're talking about home birthing. They're talking about vaccinations. They're talking about circumcision. They're talking about all these plethora of issues that have become political hotspots in our environment. So I like the fact that people are talking about these things, because that's where most people will do their research. I mean, you have most of these people that are politically charged, like this Sally Davis and this Lisa Luthi and a few others, they're all, like I said, and I hate to use the word liberal, because the liberal Democrats have hijacked such a wonderful word. But it's these political people,
the leftists,
and we get it from the right too. Oh my gosh, we've had 3%ers and patriot people come out and say, "Oh, we see your issues, we want to help you," and they've called us, and then they get involved and they realize that we're anti-militarization of our police force, that we're anti-tyranny, and we speak out against these things. And so they start going at us like, "Oh, you hate police officers? Well, screw you." And I'm like, who do you think's going to come take your guns, Mr. 3%er?
Or your kids?
Yeah, it's not enough that, you're just another person who could, make use of some help from another person just because they're good people. You also have to agree with their opinions. Otherwise, there's something wrong with you.
Yep. And that to me is sad. I have never given my hand in charity and expected them to say, well, you need to vote for this guy if I do this. Never. I've seen people on the side of the road. I've pulled over, helped them change their tire. Not once did I say, before I change your tire here,
what do you think about the wage gap?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes. That's it. What do you think? Well, I'm sorry. I just can't help you today.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Joseph.
It's just
I have my own kid I got to take care of in the next 15 minutes. Will you? Can you kind of wrap it up? Maybe give us, some final words, and then tell people about anything you want to tell them about in terms of how to link to you and stuff. And we'll link on our pages.
Do you have anything?
No, I guess in closing, what I would like to say is that it's been really hard on our family, and people will say, why would you do this to your kids? Why not just cooperate with the police and do what they say in the beginning, and then none of this would have happened? Well, if someone doesn't stand up at any point, it's just going to keep happening, and hopefully case will help others. In fact, it has. I know that I get the messages from people. Sorry, I get emotional. I get messages from people who had their kids taken by CPS and say, your story helped me through this. I knew what to expect. And you guys gave us courage, because not everybody's willing to speak up. Not only are we being targeted by the state, being targeted by the statists.
Yes.
In turn, have be just as dangerous as the government, because they're the ones that empower them. So I just tell people, that's what we're doing. We've always been outspoken in what we do, and hopefully somebody can learn from our success and our mistakes. So
yeah,
that's really what we're trying.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Anybody? Anything? I guess ultimately I just, I live out of love, and I can't. I don't know what your guys' belief are, and it's irrelevant to me. I don't share my testimony to convert. I know what my God has called me to do.
Yeah.
And I have prepared myself and my family to do as such. And not that we instigated any of this. We are living peaceful. We didn't go to there. We don't picket their fences. We don't do anything. They came to us. But at some point, enough is enough. Like my wife said, enough is enough. And, I can't sit there and look not only my God in the eyes, but I can't look, and I tell a lot of these people, when you empower tyranny, how do you give homage and honor to the soldiers who have died for our freedom? Because you're sitting there, saying, oh, well, I'm being disrespectful to police, while enabling such a tyrannical system, such a fascist system, that it can't possibly give honor to those who have actually died,
at least under the pretense of freedom.
Right. So we live in Radcliffe, Kentucky, and it's next to Fort Knox. And I communicate. We have a lot of clients that are soldiers, veterans. And my heart bleeds for them. I cry for them daily on what the government sends them out to do. The people they have to kill for this, for imperialism. And I fight for freedom, and I fight for liberty, not just for myself, but for my children, and for those that have done it before me, and those who will do it after me. I know that for me, one of the most powerful stories is when Christ, and you, like I said, you guys can have your faith. This is just where I'm coming from.
Yep.
When I read in the scriptures, the Bible, when Christ rose from the dead, and these 12 disciples walked with this man for 3 years, went through whether the miracles were real or not. They sacrificed with this man for 3 years, and he shows back up on the beach, and he asked Peter if he loved him 3 times. And he just asked him, well, why? After 3 times, he says, yes. He says, why are you just going back to fishing? And I can't go back to just living a selfish, mindless life. I'm already awake. I can't close my eyes, and I won't close my eyes. So, that's it. I mean, I could go on forever, guys.
No, yeah. Honestly, I'm getting that feeling from you. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. I'm gonna let you and your family go.
I appreciate all you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
See each of you. show a lot of energy by seeing you guys. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm
All right, God bless.
so honored to talk to you.
Yeah.
I really wish you and your family the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Your story's awesome. Peace.
Wow.
Well, guys, let's just all
fuck?
say it. Fuck the state.
Seriously.
Fuck the state. Yep.
Fuck them. I have seen a lot of fuckery that is going on with people calling CPC or DIFUS or whatever it's called in that state
Yeah.
on other parents. Especially, I spent a lot of time hanging around like slummy areas when I was younger and even some of my adult years. And there's a lot of that shit going on, but not to this degree. I mean, it'll be shit like, somebody says something smart or whatever. Next thing you know, knock, knock, knock. DIFUS is at your door and they're in your life for the next 3 months, mandatory. At least that's what it is in Jersey, as far as I know. Which means during those 3 months, they could pop up at any time at your house for any or no reason. You have to let them in. They go through all of your shit. They separate you from your children. And a lot of times they try to manipulate your kids to get them to say all kinds of crazy shit just so they can have an excuse to snatch your kids away from you. And that's
how they make money. That's their profit. Their profit is having more kids. The more kids that they can take from families, the bigger budget they can justify to hire up political masters. And that's not to say that everything CPS does is bad. I mean, that's the real tragic part. Is some kids, the best thing to do is to take them away from their families. I mean, I've dealt with kids that have had literally the worst things you can imagine other than killing them happen to them by their parents, on a regular basis. But then that's the problem with the statist motivation, is that you don't get resources to protect children. You get resources to take as many children as you can, even if they're already in safe environments. And
I mean, you say that CPS does good things, but I would say that even the good things they do, having a monopoly on those services, on those sorts of things, means that those things fundamentally aren't good, because the neighbors can't stop it while it's happening and prevent further psychological and physical trauma.
Well, I think that's where the issue comes from, is because you can't block it. Even if the thing that they are doing is good, if they're taking some kid out of an environment where he's constantly being beaten or molested by his drug addict parents or whatever. I mean, yeah, I guess that seems great in that case, but you can't prevent that from happening to somebody who is great with their children, and everything is fine.
Absolutely, they shouldn't exist.
And it's the statist snitch mentality. It's like, it's not if you see something, do something to stop it from happening. It's if you see something, say something. Let us take care of it, because we're the only ones who can. And if you disagree, we'll fight you for it, or kill you, or take away your children and make your life hell.
And what are they seeing? What they're seeing is people raising their kids in a different way than what people typically raise their kids. And because we talked about last time, but because of this mold, because of this stupid ass public school mold that kids get forced into, and they have this idiotic mindset that this is the way to do things, and that the state overlords should always be praised, and their way is what is best for children, and there are no alternatives. And then they grow up from that environment and become this type of person that thinks raising your kids on a homestead is problematic, or that homeschooling your kids is some negative thing. Idiots.
What really got me was it just seemed like all of this was just the state just trying to whip these people in line, like just dragging them through the process, just having this giant pissing contest just to let them know who's boss, just because. Like there was no, from what I'm hearing, there was no reason for any of this shit.
Well, see, and the thing, like you can say it's just for spite, but to me, I see like a possible long line of parents who say, well, I don't want to go through what they went through, so I guess I won't keep it up. You know, it's not just to keep these people in line, it's using them as an example. You fuck with us.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Take
just
your children and make your life hell.
Yeah.
But more
Yep.
people than just that. It's the ripple effect.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big
absolutely.
consequences.
Absolutely. You pick one person to make an example out of, just like, when it comes to like pirating music or games or whatever. A lot of people do that. They didn't even try to hide their IP address because why? Fuck it. But every once in a while, they will just target some unlucky person and just dump all of the fines and crazy shit on them as possible just to make an example out of them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, guys. I have to wrap stuff up on my end. So, any final thoughts?
Yes,
Wanna
I'm
share with
fucking disgusted.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk more about this last week. I mean, I think we're all sick to our stomach. I mean, of course, it is possible that they are lying about everything. I haven't researched it, but I am always inclined to believe that someone has been oppressed by the state, and it sounds like there is not evidence being presented. And anytime you see such a strong countering of individuals by both the state and the media in terms of their blogs and podcasts, there's usually a pretty good indicator that the state is doing something they want to conceal by blaming someone else.
Keep in mind though, they can't be oppressed because they have no institutional power.
Right. It's just one of those reminders that the state has the violence and they will do whatever they want.
Also,
whatever they can get away
reminder-
with, we'll say.
Also, another reminder is to maybe be very, very careful who you let into your lives or who you let even look into your lives. Because, even if they can't do shit to you, they know that they can always call the cops or whoever else, child protective services, whatever. Because, in a lot of cases, it all comes down to who reports first. And even if it's a lie, a lot of liars know that shit. If you can get to the cops first with your bullshit story, then you're okay. It's if your intention is just to fuck with somebody, then that's very easy to do as long as you can get to them first.
Yep. Yeah, it's the same sort of like childhood thing where I got my story in first, so the teacher or mommy or somebody believed me.
Yeah, I used to do that shit when I was in school. I smacked the shit out of somebody and then yell out, "Stop hitting me!" and the teacher would turn around and then see the other kid swing back and he'd get in trouble.
That's very smart. But man, people are they just try to deal with the problem as if they're actually dealing with the problem. Just kind of deal with something, get a kid in trouble and then say, "I solved it. I did something."
Right. But
really,
that's
you're
the
just
thing
creating
that's killing
injustice.
me. Like, what are they solving? What in this
nothing,
specific case?
nothing.
Like, what are these people solving? Like, I mean, let's say these people reach their stated objective and they destroy these people's lives and they destroy the lives of their family, because that's what's going to happen if these people really get their way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they got off
victory against wrongthink.
Yeah, against wrong. Yeah, well, I mean, there are a few things more dangerous to the state than people raising a lot of children and teaching them the truth about the nature of reality and the nature of the state and the world that they live in. They don't want people that understand the way the world works. And now his children have an experience of the state that is more visceral and powerful than it would have been if he just would have told them about it. That doesn't, it's not a good thing. That's absolutely horrific, but man, I hope they grow up strong.
And I bet they probably have a lot less difficulty because of the way that they raise their children, because of the way that CPC tries to manipulate children when they get them alone and ask them very leading questions.
Yeah.
So they can try to get the answers they want. And it looks like, from the interviewing with the children, that they didn't get the answers that they wanted out of them.
What's amazing about that? Like, children can't sign contracts because they're not legal full citizens,
right?
But they can somehow still deliver totally accurate testimony as if they were given just as many legal rights and just as good information,
right.
even though they probably weren't.
Yeah, it's just whatever's convenient for the state. Okay, let's really wrap things up.
All right.
Yes, I know. I keep saying that and keep intending
Yeah, I meant to
but
crack my second monster, but I didn't get the chance.
I'm so aggravated. We all are. All right, you guys, plug your shit.
Okay. You can always check me out. Twitter, PSN, and Gab at iStackSilver. Check out the music that me and some other cool Liberty types are making over at
The Free Knot, Sea Traffic.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I can't remember anything else. I think that's good. Oh,
Good
yeah,
enough.
check me out on YouTube. Yeah.
You can find me on the Twitter address on the screen. I'm Insanity is free everywhere else, and you can listen to Moment of Rage with Jeremiah Harding on JRev Radio and IPM Nation every Wednesday at 12 and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Sweet, thank you. And you can follow me on Twitter at JeremiahJM. I also mostly run the Chain Reaction Twitter account. I appreciate that one. And I think I'm going to start like a 5 to 10 minute podcast called Daddy Diatribes, where I just talk a little bit about parenting from a child-focused perspective. All right, we're out, y'all. Thank you for joining us, and please keep telling people the truth about the way the state functions. It needs to get out there. Normalize anarchy. Peace.